Welcome to the candidate forum put on by the League of Women Voters of Arlington Heights. My name is Sydney Galla, and I am from the League of Women Voters of Arlington Heights, Mount Prospect, and Buffalo Grove area. I am also a member of the Emerging Leaders Program. If you use closed captioning, please turn it on via transcript at the bottom of the screen next to the raise hands. Also, if you need the sign language interpreters, please pin Stacy, Shein, Stapleton, or Caryn, Brieschke. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization that neither supports nor opposes candidates or parties for any office. The League's purpose is to promote political responsibility through the informed and active participation of citizens in the government. Providing this forum allows citizens to become better informed about the issues facing their community and to become better acquainted with the candidates running for office. To send in questions for the candidates, please text 847-701-4701 or email forum.lwvah@gmail.com. This information is on your screen for reference. Tonight's candidates have agreed to abide by the ground rules provided by the League of Women Voters. They are as follows. Our moderator has drawn 2 names for speaking order and will rotate this during the forum for questions. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for their introduction. Each candidate will have 1 minute to complete their answer to each question, and at the end, each candidate will have 2 minutes for their closing. Candidates see both a 30-second and 15-second warning, so we ask the candidates to quickly complete their thoughts before they see the stop notice. Time limits will be enforced out of respect for both candidates. Questions will be provided by the audience. Each question will be answered by both candidates, so please, audience, only ask questions related to the office being sought. Again, we only use questions that can be answered by both candidates. Please send questions to 847-701-4701 or email forum.lwvah@gmail.com. Questions will be reviewed by the League volunteers for clarity, appropriateness, and to avoid duplication. Candidates have been asked not to interrupt one another, and the moderator will repeat a question if asked to do so. The candidates are to speak to the audience. I'd like to introduce our moderator for today's event, M. Pawlak, a sophomore at Prospect High School.
Okay, thank you. We will now start our candidate forum. We ask that you bear with us and note that technology is what it is, and we are all working to ensure that this event runs as smoothly as possible. With me on screen, we have our candidates. I would again like to note that the Q&A chat has been disabled for all attendees. So if you would like to submit a question for the candidates, please text the number 847-701-4701 or email forum.lwvah@gmail.com. We will start the forum with candidate Canty, candidate for Illinois State Representative District 24. Candidates, please notice the timer. When you see the stop sign, you may finish your sentence. For the opening statements, the order will begin with candidate Canty and then it will be candidate Hunter. So candidate Canty, you may begin your 2-minute opening statement.
Thank you so much, Em, and thank you to all the members of League for allowing us this opportunity. It's really fun to be on this side, having been on the board. I am so grateful for the work that you do. I've seen it firsthand, so thanks again. A little bit about me. I am the daughter of a Navy veteran and a 50-year optician. Both my parents were small business owners, and so I'm really grateful for the upbringing that they gave me. I'm married. I've got 2 kids that are in the elementary and middle school here in Arlington Heights, and we have a rescue dog named Bacon, who is a little bit incorrigible, but she is so lovable. I'm a lawyer by training and trade, and I've lived all around the country, Arizona, Nevada, and in 2008 made my way here with my husband to find our forever home. In 2019, I was elected to the village board in Arlington Heights. I'm really proud of the work that I've done there, delivering on infrastructure, police and fire, including funding our pensions. We have one of the best funded pensions in the state, helping our small businesses through the pandemic, and also helping our residents through the pandemic in greater numbers than we had ever done before, all without increasing our property tax levy. It's what makes us one of the best towns in Illinois, and we have one of the best downtowns in Illinois. The last thing I'll say is that in 2020, I was appointed to the RTA Board of Directors, and I'm really proud of the work that I've been able to do there as well, being a staunch advocate for public transportation, both current users and for expanding accessibility throughout the Northwest suburbs.
Okay. Thank you, candidate Canty. Candidate Hunter, you may begin your 2-minute opening statement.
Thank you very much. And I'd first of all like to start by thanking the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum tonight, because without a forum like this, then voters are only exposed to woefully inadequate and inaccurate political media messages that do not, that are paid for by special interest groups. So I really appreciate you hosting this venue tonight and allowing candidates to speak directly to the issues. I entered this race as a concerned citizen who cares. I'm an outsider, and I'm proud to be an outsider. I believe Springfield needs more independent, issue-oriented representatives to really represent the interests of the district. We don't need more progressive Democrats. That's been the supermajority this far. I have been an attorney for the last 20 years, and 13 of those I spent working as a law clerk for an appellate judge. And during that time, I became very experienced at reading legislation, analyzing it, applying it. I became very knowledgeable at seeing legislation titled as one thing and claiming to do one thing, but really doing another. And that was a fascinating experience that gave me a real insight into Springfield. And for the last 7 years, I have worked as an insurance attorney in private practice. I also have a small business background. That's how I grew up. At age 9, my parents opened a business in Iowa, and they still have that business to this day. They opened a coffee shop that serves lunch in the back, and no one knows better than me that local small business is the bread and butter of any community. I'm proud to be endorsed by the National Federation of Independent Business, and I'm proud to also be supported by so many local Arlington Heights businesses. So many of the businesses have my yard signs in their windows, and Arlington Heights is one of the most vibrant downtowns of anywhere. So I'm very proud to be a resident here. Okay. I'm also licensed for.
Thank you. I'm going to have to cut you off there. You reached your 2 minutes. So now that our opening statements are complete, I would like to remind the audience that they can send questions to the number 847-701-4701 or email forum.lwva@gmail.com. We are going to begin the questions. Candidate Canty will have 1 minute to answer the first question, which is, poll after poll show that the vast majority of Americans want common sense gun regulations, including universal background checks, red flag laws, and bans on assault weapons and high capacity magazines. Will you sponsor and vote for gun safety legislation to make our kids safer? Why or why not?
Thank you for the question. I think it's critically important. I have knocked over 10,000 doors since May 1st, and I'm really proud of that. And it's one of the things that I hear most often. I am proud to be endorsed by Moms Demand Action, by Everytown for Gun Safety, and by the Gun Violence Prevention Act. I believe that gun violence is an epidemic in our country. I am the daughter of someone who was a Navy veteran who taught me how to shoot, but he also taught me that guns are a great responsibility. And so we need to take great care with them. I believe in tackling gun violence in a multitude of ways, starting with some of these mass shootings where we talk about AR-15s, et cetera, closing the loopholes and doing some of that. But we also need to focus on the everyday gun violence, right? Investing in our communities, making sure people's homes are safe, that they have access to good wages, good education, and food security.
Okay. Candidate Canty, same question to you. Poll after poll shows that the vast majority of Americans want common sense gun safety regulations, including universal background checks, red flag laws, and bans on assault weapons and high capacity magazines. Will you sponsor and vote for gun safety legislation to keep our kids safe? Why or why not?
First of all, I believe that no one with a criminal history or with behavioral health issues should own a gun. Absolutely not. And we have plenty of laws in place now that forbid that. And I believe the laws on the books should be enforced. And we could use better communication between the departments, whether it's behavioral health boards and then law enforcement. However, more communication needs to happen. I would definitely support that, because what happens is we find that these shootings often happen as a result of two things: behavioral health issues, like I said, and then also human error. And I believe that with the laws on the books, that those are what need to be enforced. And but as far as in legislation, for me as a single female, the Second Amendment is my greatest equalizer, and I support that, and I wouldn't be giving that right up anytime soon.
Okay, great. Quick reminder to the audience that they can text questions to the number 847-701-4701 or email forum.lwvha@gmail.com. Candidate Canty, you have 1 minute to answer our second question, which is, with racism and bullying becoming more and more common throughout the country and on social media, plus the recent rise in anti-Semitism, how will you ensure that our community remains safe, open, and welcoming to all?
That's a really important question. As a woman of color myself, I'm biracial. I know exactly how that feels to be the target of bigotry and racism in ways that are both obvious and not obvious. I think one of the most important things that we can do is make sure that people know that we are a welcoming community. This means respecting people as they are and as they wish to be, letting them live as their best selves, and making sure that they have access to the resources that they need, the healthcare, the mental health care, the schooling, and all of that, right? We need to be teaching our kids at home. It's something that I ask my kids all the time when they tell me stories of what happens at school. I always say, and who were you in the story? Were you the child that was looking on, doing nothing? Or were you the child that was there trying to help the situation? Because I think in every story, everyone plays a role, and it's important to make sure that you pick the right one.
Okay, great. Candidate Hunter, same question to you. With racism and bullying becoming more and more common throughout the country and on social media and the recent rise in anti-Semitism, how will you ensure that our community remains safe, open, and welcoming to all?
Well, I believe that it often starts at home and training and teaching acceptance and tolerance for everyone. That's a very important family basic goal that everyone should follow. I know schools have very many policies in place that also monitor that, enforce that, help that. There are so many health professionals out there that hear these complaints and hear and take the appropriate responsible action in order to follow up or do what needs to be done. I agree that any of these types of problems should not be tolerated one iota, and that basically we live in a society that with media and everything else that, you know, people need to just really respect each other. And that's a very important thing. And there are so many good organizations and policies in place that enforce that already. And so I would just absolutely bolster those.
All right, great. I'm going to be constantly reminding the audience that they can text questions to 847-701-4701 and also email questions to forum.lwv-AH-MP-BG@gmail.com. For a third question, we're going to start with candidate Hunter. your question that you get to answer in 1 minute is, how much input should the state legislators have in school policies and curriculum?
I believe it should be a local level by the school board, and parents should be able to go to the school board and voice their concerns for that. I don't believe it should be from the state down. The more local control of the school, the better, the more then it represents parents' interests and their decisions. I don't think parents should ever be canceled for showing up at a school board meeting and exercising those rights. And I think locally is the best way. At a state level, you lose control. You don't represent the interests of that particular area. So I would not support legislation from a state level. I would definitely support it at the local level. That is the most equal, wonderful way to run any type of school and truly represent the interests of the parents.
Okay. Candidate Canty, same question to you. How much input should the state legislators have in the school policies and curriculum?
So as a parent myself, I was just at parent-teacher conferences for my kids last week. I believe parents are partners in their kids' education, right? And that's something I say to the teachers every year. I'm here to be a partner. I want to support at home what you're doing at school, but I need to know what that is. So we need to have those lines of communication open. I think it's important for the state on very, very broad levels to help inform some guidelines, right? So we have the Teach Act, making sure that we're teaching Asian American history in our schools. But how that is done, how that curriculum is developed, I do think that our communities have spoken and they want that to be done at the local level. It's why we have so many school districts, 4 K-8 districts in Arlington Heights alone. And I think that's a good balance to have, where you have policymakers setting overarching policies, but then how that actually works is left to local communities because they know what's best for their people.
Okay, I'm going to admit I messed up first. I had candidate Canty go first for 2 questions in a row. I shouldn't have done that. So we're going to make it even. We're going to have candidate Hunter go first again for this question. Just again, another reminder that people can text their questions to 847-701-4701 or email the questions to forum.lwv-AH@gmail.com. Candidate Hunter, the question is, do you support constituents being required to get a vaccine or other medical procedure? Why or why not?
I support, at the end of the day, medical freedom. And because for me, it's a personal decision between the person and their doctor. And I think that it should remain that way. I know there has been a lot of debate about this. A lot of people have health issues, reservations. They don't know what the data is long-term. And so they want to be able to make that choice on their own without having it mandated from either a workforce or a state level or what have you. Medical freedom is part of every individual's right, in my opinion, and that should be able to be exercised and not forced.
Okay, great. So same question to you, candidate Canty. Do you support constituents being required to get a vaccine or other medical procedure? Why or why not?
I wholeheartedly believe in a person's right to make their own medical decisions in conjunction with their doctor. They are the only people that know best. It's why I'm proudly endorsed by Planned Parenthood and Personal PAC and other groups. I think that goes for all medical treatment. You have to have the ability to make the decisions for your medical health that are right for you. And that's a place that the government doesn't really belong. I do think we have to weigh, when it comes to vaccines, I do think we have to weigh the public health interest as well. And so I would never, ever condone forcing someone to get a vaccine. But I will say there are some things that we have to do to protect public health writ large. We have eradicated diseases through the use of vaccines, but vaccines can't work or won't work for everybody, or they're not eligible. And so that's where you see things like masks if you want to be in public spaces. So I do think you have a personal choice to get vaccines or not. The government shouldn't mandate it, but you also have to weigh your role in society.
All right, great. Again, please text questions to 847-701-4701 or email them to forum.lwvah@gmail.com. The fifth question, we'll start out with candidate Canty. The question is, do you support the mental health referendum for Wheeling Township? Why or why not?
Yeah, this is always a tough ask, and it's especially tough right now. We know people are hurting. Inflation is really high, and they're nervous about taxes, and I hear that every day. But I think Michelle even agreed earlier, right, that we do have to take this opportunity where we can to address mental health issues in our community, right? We know that that's leading to gun violence. We know that that is leading to trauma and suicide among children. And so I do think we have a really important opportunity to have a bipartisan effort to address mental health that was decimated under Bruce Rauner's administration when he essentially cut funding for a lot of mental health services. It's going to take us years to build that back, but I'm committed to doing that. And I hope that many members of our community are committed to doing that as well. I heard Michelle say she was, so I'm hoping she's with me on this one.
All right, very nice. Same question to you, candidate Hunter. Do you support the mental health referendum for Wheeling Township? Why or why not?
I do support mental health efforts. We actually have those resources already available. That is my first answer, in the sense that we have great mental health resources available. And if ever, and there actually, I did check, and there has not been a shortage of resources in that regard. And so it's not like there's this big waiting list or anything like that. It is doing its job. It's working. As far as, and if that never happened or that changed, then we could reprioritize the budget and allow more for the mental health. As far as that actual 708 mental health board referendum, it will raise taxes. It could increase property taxes up to $8.57 billion. It will be another line item. It will absolutely crush the middle class. So as far as that goes, I don't support. I think it's redundant and unnecessary and an add-on to something and a service that already exists.
All right, thank you so much. Again, the audience can text questions to 847-701-4701 and email questions to forum.lwvah@gmail.com. Okay. I forgot who I started with for a second. So, candidate Hunter.
I answered the last one first.
Okay.
Candidate Hunter, the sixth question, we will start with you. The question is, the PUNS list, a statewide database that records information about individuals with developmental disabilities who are planning or seeking services, is very important in helping our most vulnerable people. How will you ensure funding stays consistent so the state can plan accordingly for best outcomes?
Well, I think on a situation like that, absolutely, that is an obviously very important initiative and important system to have in place and to continue. I think the best way to make sure that funding and support for that goes forward is to be in constant contact, maybe create a committee, make sure that those needs are truly being met, recognized, and satisfied, and that there would not be budgetary cuts to prevent that. So I would support creating a group or experts or talking to, like I said, a committee to be able to make sure that that just keeps going forward and that none of their issues end up being, not met and not satisfied. It's an important program, obviously.
All right, great. Same question to you, Candidate Canty. The PUNS list, a statewide database that records information about individuals with developmental disabilities who are planning for seeking services, is very important in helping our most vulnerable people. How will you ensure funding stays consistent so the state can plan accordingly for best outcomes?
Yeah, I've met several parents that are dealing with the PUNS list. So when their kids are aging out of the services that are provided to our youth and they're becoming adults, it is really, really difficult to find places. And so some of these parents are waiting over a decade to find space for their adult children to get the care that they need, daycare and live-in centers and therapies. And some of them are having to come out of pocket, which is extremely costly. Again, when we saw the budget impasse with Governor Rauner years ago, it decimated our mental health and behavioral health systems. So I think one of the first things we need to do is stay focused on our financial health, right? Paying our bills. When we do that on time, it leads us to situations where we can create surpluses in our budget. And we need to be disciplined about that budgeting and that spending. And that's how we can provide the consistency across the board to make sure that folks are not losing out on the care they desperately need.
Great. I'll remind our audience again to text questions to 847-701-4701 and to email questions to forum.lwvah@gmail.com. Candidate Canty, we will start with you for the next question. The question is, do you support Amendment 1, the right to unionize? Why or why not is it necessary? How will it impact our taxes?
Thank you so much for the question. I'm waiting for there we go. Thank you so much. I do support Amendment 1. I currently sit on the Arlington Heights Village Board. We have unionized labor here in our police and fire. And as I said, we've been able to provide those services without an increase in our property tax levy every year that I've been on the board. So I think it's a bit of fear mongering to say that it will increase our taxes. We know that when you have unionized labor, all labor rises, right? All wages are higher across the board. I do think that we have heard statements before that we don't need this. The NLRB exists, and so it will only affect public sector workers. And the NLRB is only as strong as the legislators who are there who do not change it. And so having this constitutional amendment, should anything happen at the federal level, would allow us to make sure that our workers are protected the same way that we, with Roe v. Wade, we passed a law that made sure it was codified here in Illinois.
All right, great. Same question to you, Candidate Hunter. Do you support Amendment 1, the right to unionize? Why or why not is it necessary? How will it impact our taxes?
I do not support Amendment 1. I would oppose that. It will absolutely raise taxes. It will actually raise taxes for each family over a 4-year period at least $2,100. And that is a very conservative estimate of how much it will go up. Also, it's a misnomer to say workers' rights. This amendment is already something that it only applies to government unions. It does not apply to the private sector. So don't be persuaded by the commercials that you see that makes it look like it actually applies to the private sector. It's only government unions, and government unions already have all this power. We would be the only state in the nation to implement something like this into our Constitution and actually codify it. It's way too extreme. Our government unions already have so much power, and it would make us very uncompetitive for attracting small businesses here to Illinois, and we're already having a problem with that. It gives unions way too much power, so I would oppose.
All right, great. I'll again remind the audience to text questions to 847-701-4701 or email them to forum.lwv-AH@gmail.com. Candidate Hunter, we will start with you for the 8th question. The question is, as a parent and wife of a teacher, I have concerns for the safety of the students and staff. What will you do, or what do you propose to be done in order to keep our schools and overall community safe?
Safety is a huge issue. I agree with that absolutely. One of the first things I would do is repeal the Safety Act, because what the Safety Act does is actually handcuff the police and embolden the criminals. The Safety Act needs to be repealed because what it does is it allows serious offenders to be released with no cash bail as of January 1st. They would be able to come out and reoffend, and a situation could present itself of an eyewitness, or let's say a victim, not wanting to come forward, knowing that the victim would be right back, or knowing that the perpetrator would be right back out on the street. So I would absolutely repeal the Safety Act. That is making our communities, schools, you name it, everywhere much more at risk. And matter of fact, I knocked on a door the other day in Prospect Heights and talked to a policeman, and he is so upset about the Safety Act. So that is number one on the agenda, to improve safety and help the police do their job.
Okay, so next we will hand it over to candidate Canty with the same question. As a parent and wife of a teacher, I have concerns for the safety of students and staff. What will you do, or what do you propose be done in order to keep our schools and overall community safe?
So I'm a strong proponent of our police departments. I have a really close relationship with our police chief here in Arlington Heights. I do want to say, first off, that one of the first things we need to do is tackle gun violence. And so I won't rehash my answer there. But I also want to remind everybody that the Safety Act is strongly supported by domestic violence groups and victims' rights groups who feel safer under this act, knowing that the people that are accused of committing crimes against them will not be able to get out of jail pending their trial if they have money, right? It turns our system from one that focuses on the riches of an alleged defendant into one that focuses on the risk that that defendant poses. And it's been used very successfully at the federal level, signed into law by Ronald Reagan, and in New Jersey, signed by Republican Chris Christie. So I think that all of these things together lead me to want to support that.
Okay, very nice. I will again remind the audience that they can text questions to 847-701-4701 or email them to forum.lwvah@gmail.com. Candidate Canty, we will start the 9th question with you. The question is it important to work across the aisle to get legislation important to your constituents, whether they voted for you or not? Why or why not? If it is important, how do you plan to do it?
I think it's critically important to work across the aisle. I do that currently on the village board. We come from all different sides of the political spectrum, and yet we work together really well to deliver for our community. In my roles as an attorney, as a project manager, as a change manager, one of the things that I have been tasked with doing and pride myself on doing is listening to the things that people are telling me and then looking for the common ground within those points where we can agree on different topics. That's where you start to see the real work happen. Some of these issues can get really contentious. They do in my day job, they do on the village board, but you have to be able to know that people are coming with the right attitude, and you have to give them the benefit of the doubt. We always say, presume positive intent. And so that's something I strive to do. And I think that I've shown I can work really well across the aisle throughout my career, and I intend to do so in Springfield.
All right, very nice. Same question to you, candidate Hunter. Is it important to work across the aisle to get legislation important to your constituents, whether they voted for you or not? Why or why not? If it is important, how do you plan to do it?
Absolutely. It's critical to success. The type of campaign I'm running is a very common sense campaign. And matter of fact, knocking doors, I've already noticed that there are a lot of Democrats on board with what I have to say and with what my position is on stances. I'm already working together. I've already reached so many Democrats, not just independents. And I do believe working together is critical. We have a supermajority of Democrats right now, one party rule. We can see in the state that is not working. We need more independent, issue oriented representatives in Springfield to be able to balance things out and work together. So it's not just one-sided things. Like I mentioned, the Safety Act, not one Republican voted for that. We need to have common sense legislation and enough representation on both sides to be able to do that. So absolutely, I would reach across the aisle. I think it's critical. It's something I would absolutely practice.
All right, amazing. Again, I'll remind the audience to text their questions to 847-701-4701 or email them to forum.lwv-AH@gmail.com. With the remainder of the questions, since we have a lot coming in, I'll only be saying them once. If you need me to repeat them, please tell me. Candidate Hunter, we will start the 10th question with you. We keep hearing abortion access and women's right to make their own healthcare decisions are, quote, not on the table here in Illinois, yet there is talk of a federal ban and many young men and women in our communities are concerned. Will you support women's autonomy if you are elected?
Well, Roe v. Wade correctly returned abortion laws to the states, and that's the law. And Roe v. Wade being overturned means that's the reality of the state. And so Illinois law regarding abortion will not change. For me, I believe that having the Parental Notification Repeal Act and laws like that, I think that those laws are very extreme and not fair to parents and mothers, that, you know, a minor would have an abortion and the parent wouldn't even know. But as far as what the law is, Illinois is the law, and what it says is on the books. We have one of the most extreme laws of any state in this country. And so basically the fact that, you know, Roe v. Wade was overturned does absolutely return it to the states. So there's no question there that that's the reality of it. And for me, I just believe that, you know, I do believe in the sanctity of life, but with exceptions.
All right, great. Candidate Canty, the same question to you.
Thank you. I think it's really concerning to hear someone say that, you know, the law has been returned to the states and it is what it is and it says what it says, and in the same breath say that a different law that was repealed is extreme, because that suggests that laws can be changed and that this person would intend to change them. I believe in a person's right to make their medical decisions regardless of whether or not I agree with those decisions. Not everything is my choice. I'm a person of faith, and my faith tells me that it's not for me to judge someone else. So I would adamantly protect someone's right to make their own medical decisions. And I think that the only reason it's protected here in Illinois is because we've elected people that care very much about a person's right to medical freedom. We've heard before that this is the law of the land. We heard it in the confirmation hearings of Brett Kavanaugh, of Amy Coney Barrett, and others. And then we watched it fall. So if we don't want that to happen to us here, we need to make sure we're electing people that will stand strong on a person's right to make their own decisions about their own body.
Okay, great. I will again remind the audience that they can text questions to 847-701-4701 or email the questions to forum.lwv-AH@gmail.com. For the next question, we will start with candidate Canty. The question is, what can Illinois do to reduce the number of taxing bodies in the state? How can you get small school districts to join together to stop the huge costs of school administration?
This is something I talk about almost every day on the doors. people that feel that they are taxed to the max. As I said earlier, we have 4 K-8 districts that touch on just Arlington Heights alone, and Arlington Heights is one of only 6 communities in the 54th district. I think that's something that the voters have to decide, right? With the consolidation, it means that you're giving up a little bit of that local control. And so I think people like having the local control. What they don't appreciate is the taxes that go along with that. And so I think it's a good question to put to the voters. Do they want to see these types of consolidations, and which consolidations will work in which areas? I don't know that you can flatly say one level of government should be cut because that will work for everyone. I'm not sure that that's actually true, particularly in our rural communities, but it's something for the voters to decide.
All right, great. Candidate Hunter, same question to you.
Could you repeat the question?
Sure. What can Illinois do to reduce the number of taxing bodies in the state? How can you get small school districts to join together to stop the huge costs of school administration?
Well, we know on our tax bill that, school boards take about 60 to 65% of every tax bill that we have. So measures at consolidation, transparency, running things more effectively. We have these tax hikes of up to 5% that are allowed to be done without submitting it to a vote or a referendum. And, I'd like to see that cut in half. I think that would help a lot at a minimum. I also think, to say that, my opponent with taxes and that, they're so high, remember that with the school bodies, it's not just those taxes that are important. Taxes are just going to keep going up, especially if we end up voting for these 7-8 mental health referendums and also Amendment 1. So when it comes to reducing taxes, look at the whole big picture, and schools are a big part of that, but so are these other referendums on the ballot in November.
All right, amazing. For our 12th question, will first go to candidate Hunter. The U.S. Department of Labor recently reported that Illinois has the highest level of unemployment in the country, but legislators in the General Assembly failed to properly fund the Unemployment Trust Fund, so we are still $1.3 million short. This will result in a tax increase on our small businesses and reduced benefits to working families struggling to work. How will you help grow our economy and support working families?
Well, like I said, I come from a small business background, so I understand that if you have a solid budget and you pay your bills, that's really what works. It's that simple. So what has happened is that Springfield got a lot of federal relief money that has been spent, and it was up to about $6 billion at least that they received. And so what they've done is, had a budget of roughly $35 billion in 2019, and then that is now at $46 billion in 2022. Where will that $6 billion come next year without federal bailout money? And it's the same for the unemployment fund. We have a spending problem, not a revenue problem. And Springfield has not done their job of balancing the budget. And they're claiming we are bottom for unemployment, we're bottom for property taxes, we are bottom for everything. And they're claiming that the budget is balanced. We have the worst credit rating of any state in the nation.
All right, great. Candidate Canty, same question to you.
Thank you. I'm not in the legislature yet, so what I can talk to you about is what I have done as a trustee and what I hope to do in Springfield. As a trustee, I have passed budgets that have lived within our means, as I think all governmental bodies have done, should do. I have also looked for creative ways to increase our revenue in our community through initiatives such as Arlington, Al Fresco, and others as a way to help us make gains. I've also looked to take our surpluses and put those to use in a way that helps our taxpayers by paying our pension fund. We know that for decades, there was mismanagement. There were tax holidays under both Republican and Democratic governors in the past, and those need to stop. We have to pay our bills on time. We have to be disciplined in our budgeting. We have to be disciplined in our spending. We're seeing that happen now. There were pension reforms back in 2010, and we're starting to see the shift in that they are working, right? Where our pension obligation is starting to decrease. Representative Batnick has said that it will only continue to go down from here.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. The 13th question, we will first start with you, candidate Canty. The question is, there has been a lot of talk on both of your social media accounts about tampons in the boys' bathrooms. What is your stance on this?
You know, I believe that everyone should get to live as their best and true self. I can remember being a young woman in high school and being without a tampon and needing to ask friends, and the shame that women experience all over from insecurity about having access to the products that they will need. I don't think that it harms anyone, right? And if passing a bill like this can make one kid's life a little bit easier, they feel more confident, more comfortable, more secure, more safe in school, then they will better be able to pay attention. I can tell you, my kids are in elementary school. My son just started middle school this year. Tampons were in the bathrooms while my son was there, and he never mentioned it to me once, and he still hasn't mentioned it to me. I just don't see it as an issue that we need to get up in arms over, especially when it can help some kids in our area.
All right, great. Candidate Hunter, same question to you.
I actually think it does do a lot of harm. Number one, it does a lot of harm because taxpayers are on the hook for this. And it's a needless thing to have tampons in boys' bathrooms. Matter of fact, I've seen picture after picture after picture where all they're doing is taping them to the walls, doing all kinds of things with them, but not using them. So it's like one of those, and my opponent is on record for supporting this. I oppose it. I think it's a waste of taxpayers' money. I don't see any benefit to it whatsoever. I also think it goes along the lines with erasing all gender-specific pronouns, which my opponent also endorses, and also, you know, having sex ed and things like that taught to kindergartners. It's all in that same line of thinking, and it's not only age inappropriate and a waste of taxpayers' money, it's needless.
Okay, thank you so much. Candidate Hunter, the 14th question will first go to you. Did the government abuse his emergency powers during the pandemic? What role should the legislator play?
Yes, I definitely believe that the governor abused power. We are on what I believe is 36 emergency orders at this point. This is where we're at. Exercising this authority by fiat, it's an abuse of authority. The legislature needs to be checked into this and a part of the discussion. Somebody like my opponent will be a part of the party line and not oppose any of these shutdowns and emergency orders by the governor. Illinois is one of the bottom states for dealing with COVID because of these shutdowns. It's hurt businesses, it's hurt families, it's hurt students. It has not served the state well, and other states in comparison have flourished and done much better. So I am absolutely against government by fiat, and I believe the legislature needs a seat at that table for the next emergency order discussion.
All right, Candidate Canty, the question will now go to you.
You know, I think that Governor Brieschke was faced with an unprecedented situation, one that had not been experienced in my lifetime or in his, or maybe any of us on this Zoom call. What I will say is that with the benefit of hindsight, did we potentially go a little bit too far? Potentially. And could we have handled things differently? Would I have liked to have seen things handled differently? Yes. As a parent, it was incredibly hard when the schools closed and everybody was trying to work from home and learn from home. It was incredibly challenging. I cried more in the year 2020 than I have in any year before or since. But what I will say is that I think he was trying to do his best. And I think as a village trustee, our board did our best to try and help our businesses who thrived during the pandemic, judging by the number of ribbon cuttings and ribbon tyings that I've attended over the past 2 years.
Great. So the 15th question will first go to you, candidate Canty. The question is, should politicians have term limits? Why or why not?
I absolutely believe in leader limits, and I know some bills have been introduced in that regard. And I do think that there is a place for term limits in general. What I want to make sure that we don't do is leave the only people with any experience as in the legislature as the lobbyists that are there to fight for the bills that they believe in. I believe that we want to make sure that taxpayers and the citizens are electing representation that has the opportunity to learn and become knowledgeable. I think if somebody is going to be unethical, I think Madigan gets thrown out a lot in these conversations. If somebody is going to be unethical, I think they're an unethical person from the get-go, and I don't know that term limits will change that. But I think leader limits can go a long way, and then we can work to make sure that bad actors are rooted out by their voters.
All right, great. Candidate Hunter, same question to you.
Yes, I support term limits for legislators, absolutely. I also support a total ban on former members lobbying state government. I mean, with Madigan, that was a prime example of the need for term limits. And now the 11 or however many legislators have been indicted as well as a result of the Madigan machine. If we have term limits for presidents, why wouldn't we have term limits for legislators? So I absolutely support that. And I believe that a lot of the problems we see in Illinois right now are the result of a lack of term limits.
All right, this will be our last question of the forum. We will start with candidate Hunter. The question is, what are your top 3 legislative priorities and why?
Well, first of all, I support a real budget. I believe that, the Democrats are saying that the budget is, that it's balanced. It is absolutely not balanced. Like I said, with the $6 billion bailout money and COVID relief money, where's that $6 billion going to come from the next time around, next year? Because it's been spent and it will come out of taxpayers' pockets if the right people are not elected. That's 1. 2, crime. That's top of mind when I knock on people's doors. I would repeal the Safety Act. I would sponsor legislation to do that. That is a terrible piece of legislation that should have never been passed. And matter of fact, the Democrats are talking about amending it. And why would they need to amend it if it shouldn't have been passed? It's an admission that it's flawed and shouldn't have been passed to begin with. That's 2. The last thing I would support is parental rights. I believe parents are the final arbiter of everything when it comes to their children, whether it be medical decisions, educational decisions, curriculum. I would support parents' rights.
All right, amazing. The last question of the forum goes to you, candidate Canty.
Thank you so much. I think that 2 of the things that are paramount to me are 1, protecting a person's right to control their own body and make their own medical decisions, and 2, tackling gun violence here in Illinois. We know just the other day in Prospect Heights, some teenagers were playing with a gun and one was fatally shot. I think that's something that we need to get under control. So those are 2 of my top issues. And my 3rd issue, I actually agree with my opponent. I believe that we need to maintain our fiscal discipline. We need to focus on our budgeting, thinking longer term about our budgets and how we intend to pay for things and get them done. I don't believe that we have improperly used our COVID money. It was used to pay off one-time costs and not operational costs. But we still have a lot of work to do to get Illinois on a firm financial footing. We've made some headwinds. I've proven I can do that as a village trustee, and I want to do that down in Springfield.
All right, since that was the last question, we will now move in to our 2-minute closing statements. Since candidate Canty opened the forum, we will begin our 2-minute closing statements with candidate Hunter. And you may begin.
Thank you. It's been such a pleasure to be here this evening. I just want to thank again the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. If you are happy with the direction that the state is going, and by that I mean we are the bottom of the barrel when it comes to credit ratings, we are the bottom state. We have the highest unemployment in the nation, and we are top when it comes to property taxes and gas taxes. So I don't ever remember when being last at something was something to brag about. If you're happy with this direction, then vote for my opponent. But if you want a hunter in office and you want someone to really take aim and align themselves with the interests of this district, and I'm talking moms and dads and families and businesses, then vote for me, because I am an outsider. I am an issue independent oriented person who will definitely fight for you. And that is my only reason for running. I am, like I said, an outsider concerned citizen. That's my purpose in running. So I will represent you. I promise that. And if you so choose to elect me as state representative, I would be honored and grateful. And I would absolutely see it as a privilege to serve as your next state representative in the 54th district. Thank you very much.
All right, amazing. Candidate Canty, you may begin your 2-minute closing statement.
Thank you so much. And I again want to thank the League of Women Voters, and a special thank you to Stacy and Caryn for all of their interpreting. I know sometimes I talk a little fast, and I'm very impressed with your ability to keep up with me. And so thank you for providing that deeply needed service. In closing, I just want to reiterate how critically important this election is to making sure that we are protecting the values that we care about most here in the 54th district. I have knocked over 10,000 doors. I have cried on some of these doors. I have spoken with teachers that teach with their doors locked because they're afraid that during an intruder, they would not be able to have the wherewithal to get their hand on the key in the lock to do what they are supposed to do. So they just keep it locked permanently. I think that's a disservice. I'm really proud to have the endorsement of the Daily Herald, the Associated Firefighters of Illinois, the Sierra Club, Planned Parenthood, Faith and Plays, the Illinois Federation of Teachers, and so many others that care so very deeply about this state that I have chosen to call home, a state that my husband and I have so dedicated ourselves to, that our families are now retiring into so that they can be closer to us. But ultimately, what really matters is the voters and what they think. And I've heard from a number of them, and I believe that I am what they are looking for, a proven leader in our community and one who knows what it takes to get things done at a legislative level. So I hope that I have earned your vote tonight. I'll remind everybody that early voting is going on right now, and it continues throughout the weekends. I plan to take my 2 kids with me on Saturday morning, and I hope to see some of you there. And thank you again so much.
All right, great. Thank you all so much for attending the candidate forum. I will now return it to our host.
Sorry, okay. Thank you to M. Pawlak for being our moderator. Remember, our democracy relies on citizens willing to run for office, and we are grateful to all of you for joining us and to our candidates, Mary Beth Canty and Michelle Hunter, not only for participating in tonight's forum, but for their grace and understanding when we reschedule this forum to respect the high holiday Yom Kippur. Once again, our league apologizes for the oversight in originally scheduling this forum on the eve of Yom Kippur. Finally, to our ASL interpreters, Stacy, Shein, Stapleton, and Caryn Brieschke, and to all of the volunteers of our league who work tirelessly to bring you this free program. Our league expresses gratitude. Please make sure to register to vote, make your plan to vote, and then make sure your voice is counted this election day. Need help? The League of Women Voters, Arlington Heights, Mount Prospect, and Buffalo Grove is here to help. Check out our website at www.lwvah.org for voter information, mail-in vote information, and planning your ballot, as well as early and day of polling locations. Again, check us out at www.lwvah.org. And follow us on social media at Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We even have accounts specifically for youth at student.lwvah. and a mascot at Pause for Votes. And make sure once you're ready to vote, you tell 10 friends where they can find all of this information they need to be counted. www.lwvah.org. Have a great day.
Thank you so much.